Well, it looks like we have a little bit of controversy in the YouTube sports card space. All of this has been triggered by a rant video released by none other than Geoff Wilson. You ready? Then let's do it. Well, hey, hello, and welcome, rookie card collecting friends. I know here recently I've been doing a lot of reaction videos with the hobby and that sort of thing. I promise I'm going to be getting back to the rookie card. I just can't help myself. These types of videos, these types of issues that come up and just cause a reaction just really excite me. And I really like to just jump in and give my take, my opinion on the whole thing. I do think I've done a little bit of homework. Feel like I'm going to be making some solid points here, and I want you to stick with me to the end because I'm going to be all over the place with this. But by the end of it, I feel like I'm going to bring it full circle. There's a lot of things, I'm going to be honest with you. If you've seen the video, which I'll leave a link if you haven't seen it, but if you have seen it, I am going to be saying some things that are against what Geoff is saying, and there are going to be some things that I'm going to support what he's saying. But I don't want to lose you because I don't want to support him in a certain area and then you check out. No, I want you to stick around because by the end of it, again, I'm going to bring you full circle. And it's one of them things where I had to process my emotions when I was watching this video. As a matter of fact, I watched it a second time because I didn't want to react out of emotion. I wanted to think things through clearly and logically and basically extract some things that he makes some solid points. But in some other areas, I feel he's off. I have a critical mind. I am one that I am very observant. I love to observe human behavior. And it's one of those things where I really, when I saw the video, I knew right away. As a matter of fact, I left a comment on there and I basically said, boy, is this going to cause a backlash? And I put like an emoji popcorn, a popcorn emoji because I'm just like, this is just content gold. when you look at the comment section, when you look at the reaction videos made by just about every big YouTuber in the space out there, everybody made a reaction video on it, but I'm going to end this video with what I feel is everyone's right. And so let me begin. I'm going to show you 3 little clips of this video. That's all, because I don't want to show too much of it because I want to move this along.
I've heard enough and I am tired of it. The get off my lawn crowd in the sports card hobby thinks kids and new collectors only chase hits and don't care about collecting. If I had a nickel for every time that I have heard collecting is dead, I could buy Amazon. And no, I don't mean just some Amazon stock. I could buy the entire company. But no, collecting is not dead and hit seeking is not killing collecting today. And next, I will tell you why.
All right, so here we go. This was the first 30 seconds of this video. And if you study YouTube analytics, my friends, you know how crucial the first 30 seconds of a video are. And he hit this thing, I mean, textbook. Here's what I want you to understand when it comes to Geoff and the typical content creator. Geoff has an army of people that help him produce content. I would say that this perhaps was generated by his marketing team that kind of put this topic together. All of that stuff is kudos to him. He doesn't have to worry about finding ideas because he has people creating that stuff for him. He doesn't have to worry about editing and all these things. He has people doing all of that for him. All he does is probably just do the recording and he walks away and his team takes care of the rest. So he's a step ahead above the rest in that aspect. So yeah, my point here is a textbook intro. You want to engage curiosity. You want to spark emotion. You want to do all of and he did all of that in the first 30 seconds. I want to skip ahead a little bit. I'm going to show you another little portion of the video that I find crucially important. Hold on one second.
Purchase. No one cares about collecting today, so they say. The hobby is different today than it was when we were kids. Back when we were kids, Everybody collected. They cared about collecting. They wanted to build sets. They didn't care about the big hits. They didn't care about what cards were going up and down in value. It was pure. And today, the hobby is ruined, where people are just chasing hits and all they care about is the hot card of the week. And to all of that, I say nonsense, because that's a bunch of revisionist history that is not true right there.
Okay, so again here, I want you to notice this is what is called the proposition, where he is explaining to you what this video is going to be about, and he's proposing an idea to you, and he wants to let you know that he is going to speak against this topic. It's called a proposition. And so again, when it comes to message delivery, the introduction and the proposition are textbook. This guy came to the video fully prepared with a shotgun blast for his viewers. But there's another thing that I want you to notice in this little clip that I just showed you, and that is the word revisionist history. Now, he ended up using, I noticed he used that word like 3 or 4 times throughout the video. And it's one of them things where I understand what he's saying. And when we look at the definition of revisionist history, and it's basically the distortion of the historical record, the distortion of the historical record. But I think as I understand that definition, and as I watch the video, I kind of get a sense that he's also guilty of kind of doing the same thing in this video. So, and all of not to his fault or any of our faults. You see, I think the main issue here is that we're recalling things as we see them. We're recalling things through our own experiences. And as we move on in the video, he starts giving testimony as how he recalls it, how he remembers it. And he goes into great detail about the 1989 Upper Deck. And he goes into great detail of what him and his circle of friends were doing. And this is, I think, a portion of the hobby that all content creators are guilty of, myself included. And that is, we seem to make strong opinions, or we speak very authoritatively on something because we have the experience, because we lived it, because we went through it. But in actuality, that might not be the case universally. I feel many content creators also lose a little bit of credibility when it comes to talking about this era. It's one where just because you were born in the 1980s doesn't mean you know anything about the hobby of the 1980s. Doesn't mean you experienced the full experience of collecting in the 1980s. A lot of these guys, I think Geoff included, he was born in 1983. So he's talking about 1989. You were what? You know, he was what, 6, 7 years old? I mean, what really do you know, or what really do you remember? What can you recall with any authority in 1989 when you were 6 or 7 years old? And I hear a lot of content creators speaking in the same vein. I started truly as a collector in 1981 at the age of 11. By 1989, I was, 19, 20 years old. So, I would say like a 19, 20-year-old has a little bit more understanding of what the hobby was like rather than a 6 or 7-year-old. This is how come the voices of the sages are so important, in my opinion. Guys like Dr. James Beckett, Rich Klein, all of the I lean so heavily on these old timers, especially when I was building the story of the rookie card. I was referring to people. I wanted to speak to people that were in the hobby 50, 60 years, because they're the ones who lived through it. Their testimony carries more weight than anything else. Their testimony carries more weight than an article in a magazine. Their testimony is the authority. Another point I wanted to bring up about a video is that he had a lot of negative comments, especially about, because he said chasing hits versus chasing rookie cards. And a lot of people were like, we never chased hits in the 1980s. There was no such thing as a hit. But we were chasing rookie cards, and that was the chase back then, not so much an insert auto, right? But it's one of them things where I think we're splitting hairs there. It's one of them things I don't see the big deal. I think if anything, Geoff could realize, maybe all content creators could realize, is that our viewers, our listeners, take every single word we say with the utmost attention to detail. You come and make a video like this, every single syllable that you say is going to be dissected for credibility. And when you make a little mistake like that and you call a chase card a hit or a hit a chase card, it's just one of those little things that people, a little nuance that will actually explode. He did make a solid point when it comes to the hot and cold list. Okay. In the Beckett magazine, there was a hot and cold list that basically told you which cards were going up in value and which cards were going down in value. It was a very popular segment of the Beckett magazine. I also went to Google and I asked Google, what year did Beckett hot and cold list first appear? And it referred me to the May 1987 baseball issue. And I will give him credit for this one because he has taken that same concept of the hot and cold list and he makes a video about it. And I don't see anything wrong with that, especially when he has his software program that he has, Market Movers, and he basically extracts the information from there and creates his own hot and cold list. And now we get to the portion of the video where he's actually giving some pushback. Let me show you this one real quick. This will be the last clip we look at.
The Beckett price guide existed. Today, it's just in a little bit of a different format. Today, we've got Market Movers and other apps to show you what cards are trending. We've got my top 5 cards on YouTube, but that's nothing new. It's always existed in the sports card hobby. People have always been chasing hot and cold cards. Let's not use that as some example of why collecting is dead today and why it was so much better when we were all kids, or it was so much better 40 years ago when back then everybody collected and no one cared about the hot and cold cards. And today all people are chasing is the hot cards. Get out of here with my get off the lawn garbage. That is not the case at all.
That's some serious pushback there, but I'm going to say something about this segment of pushback. And I want you to stick with me now. You got to hear me out all the way. And that is, this guy has been getting critiqued and criticized and verbally attacked for so long in so many different ways that I want to extend him a little bit of grace here and say, man, go ahead and get yourself a little pushback. You've earned it. You deserve it because of the crap you've been dealing with video after video, year after year. You deserve your moment of sunshine and giving the hobby, especially those who oppose you, giving them a little pushback. And then to the hobby, I would say, I feel like we're so good at dishing it out. Let's see, how good are we at taking it? And it's the old adage, don't dish it out if you can't take it. And so in that aspect, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with his pushback. I think it's well-earned. I think good for him for finally pushing back. And to be honest with you, I don't think that he's not that far off of the truth. There is some old school, get off my lawn. And I know I've probably come across that way myself. This is how come I'm always evolving as a content creator. I always strive to be a little bit better. And there's some things that I have said that I have been severely attacked. One of them is I had said, I tried to find a video, but I couldn't find it. But like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I said, this guy, Geoff Wilson, is going to be the mouthpiece of the hobby. And boy, did I get attacked on that video. My goodness. It was a very engaging video. But it's one of them things where we have to remove emotion and start thinking of things logically. And when we look at the entirety of it, Geoff Wilson is the mouthpiece of the hobby, you guys. Like it or not, he is. Listen, when Topps does a release, They first market it to their website, to their social media accounts. And then when it's time to release, do a press release, they're not calling up the Times or they're not calling up the New York Post. No, they're calling Geoff Wilson to give exclusive breaking news. You know why Topps goes to him first? Because he's the mouthpiece between the hobby and the industry. When Topps makes a mistake and they want to send a press release and they want to give further explanation, who's the first one breaking the news? Think about it. Geoff Wilson. Yeah. So someone who was influenced by sports cards, coming off of cereal boxes and Hostess cakes in 1976, and somebody who officially became a collector in 1981 and a dealer in 1994. I can say this about the hobby, in my opinion, and that is that the hobby at that time, I believe the hobby was slow. The hobby did not evolve like it does today. But prior to 1984, in the way I experienced it, at least for me, is that the hobby was a lot slower. The hobby was a lot more innocent in a sense. It was innocent. And a good example of innocence would be like me growing up. After on Saturday mornings, after I would get my chores done, I would meet up with some friends within our block. There's 3, 4, sometimes 5 of us would ride our bike a mile and a half or so to the nearest Walgreens. We would pick up packs of 1985 Tops or whatever else was available. But I specifically remember 85 Tops because we're all chasing, back then was Roger Clemens. And I remember buying those packs, going back to my friend's house, and we would all sit on the porch and just open up packs and trade and chew bubble gum or eat junk candy or whatever. Those are the types of things that I say is more innocent, right? And it wasn't so much value. It was much more about trading and collecting and building sets. But with that state of innocence also came a state of immaturity. And I feel this is how come there were so many like dealers in that they were just like snakeskin salesmen. They were just trying to feed you a line of crap so they can purchase the cards you had for pennies on the dollar, and they would try to upsell you on a certain rookie or a certain player. And there just seemed to be so much like scammy snake salesman type of stuff going on. But today we can really say that the hobby is much more sophisticated. It's much more intelligent. It's much more nerdy. It's much more, now we have instant market research as far as sales are concerned. We can look at the upticks or the downticks of a certain card hour by hour, minute by minute. Nowadays everybody has extensive spreadsheets that they're keeping data on to try to figure things out or try to organize their collection and thoughts. So the hobby is much more nerdy today, much more sophisticated than it was in the early days of the 1980s. But yes, I would agree that, starting in 1984, this level of rookie card and investment type of thing really did intensify, and it grew more and more. And it never stopped. But I do think at the same time, we put a lot of stock in this one video that goes around. It's on YouTube somewhere, but the video is of a card show, of a documentary in 1990. Some guy went into a card show and he was recording and interviewing dealers and collectors and that sort of thing. And you heard the terms investing in this guy or this guy. And they interviewed younger kids that were looking for the latest rookies and that sort of thing. And you looked at they interviewed a dealer saying, oh, these young kids, all they're worried about is investing. And there's this complaint of that. But I do think that we put a lot of stock into that video, because I can say that was not the case everywhere. And I will give credit to the East Coast, which is where that documentary was filmed. Back then, in my opinion, the way I remember it, the East Coast was always like ahead of the game when it came to cards. They were like trendsetters, basically. And just because it was like that in 1990 at that East Coast card show doesn't mean that it was like that everywhere else. I mean, it might have been, I don't know, but I don't recall it that way. Which leads me to my final point that I'm going to leave you guys with. And it's probably a good word of advice for any content creator. And it's a lesson that I have learned here in the last year or two. But we have to use and understand the word, in my opinion. I think that has to come out of our mouths much more than anything else, because there is a sense where we like contradict one another. And I think a lot of it is the error of thinking that the way we saw it or the way we experienced it is the way it was throughout the entire hobby. And I think, like, when we take this video, like what Geoff did here, and he speaks a little too authoritatively. People don't like to be spoken to in an authoritative way. Uh, I speak in an authoritative way, and I have rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. It's one of the big reasons why I think my channel hasn't taken off the way I thought it would, and that is because at first I was a little rough around the edges. I was a little harsh, but I'm always looking for feedback, and I'm always looking to improve. And one of the critiques that I was given by a close friend was, "Hey man, you can't expect everybody to be to have a doctorate in rookie cards. You have to, like, talk to us at our level. You have to, like, not come off so harshly." And I think there was a lot of wise advice in that. And I learned throughout my content creating career is that when I say, in my opinion, or this is the way that I seen it, that comes off a lot smoother and really frees us from anybody using anything against us. And so that's really been very, very helpful to me. I think if he would have used, perhaps, in my opinion, a couple of times, I think this video would have came across a lot differently, because there are some things in there, you guys, that I strongly agree with. And there is a lot of this get off my lawn nonsense that we have to come to grips with it, at least in my opinion, right? Well, listen, with that said, thank you for tuning in. Please consider subscribing to this channel. At the very least, please hit the thumbs up button and let YouTube know that you liked it. And until next time, as I like to say, my friends, remember that not all rookie cards are created equal. Until next time, buenos nachos, muchachos.